My sister stood up at Thanksgiving, her wine glass trembling just enough to look dramatic, and said, "Olivia needs to stop begging for money. It's pathetic." Everyone laughed softly like cruelty was a family tradition. I didn't argue. I just reached for my phone, opened my banking app, and started canceling 6 years of secret payments, her credit cards, her car, her loans, all gone in 30 seconds. She didn't even notice until her phone began buzzing nonstop. Declined. 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 You should have seen her face when she realized who pulled the plug, but trust me, that wasn't revenge. That was only the opening move. Thanksgiving has always been my mother's favorite performance. The house glowed like a magazine spread, cranberry-scented candles, polished silver, and a centerpiece that looked too perfect to touch. Every year, Amanda made her grand entrance 30 minutes late, Burberry coat draped just so her husband Derek trailing behind with the kind of practiced smile rich men wear. I'd show up quietly, pie from the grocery store in one hand, car keys in the other. Nobody ever noticed I was on time. You learn patterns when you grow up as the family's afterthought. Mom would beam at Amanda like sunlight while saving her that tone for me. Half pity, half disapproval. "At least you're stable, Olivia," she'd say, as if stability were a consolation prize. Dad would chime in about Amanda's entrepreneurial spirit, conveniently forgetting her Etsy store lasted 3 months and lost money. It didn't matter. Amanda sparkled. I balanced spreadsheets. I made more money than anyone in that room, but to them, I'd never be interesting enough to brag about. 4 years earlier, before all this, Amanda called me crying. Midnight. Her voice shook the way it always did when she needed something. "Liv, I maxed out a card on the kitchen remodel. Derek can't know, please, just this once. I'll pay you back." The payment was $890. I wired it before I even asked a question. That's what sisters do, right? Help each other. But once became twice, then every month. Credit cards, a car loan, an insurance bill. Her emergencies turned into lifestyle maintenance. By year 4, I was covering $3,600 a month, enough to buy my own second car. I kept every receipt, every text. I told myself it was temporary, that one day she'd make it right. She never did. And I never said no. Part of me wanted to prove I wasn't the selfish one they thought I was. Another part was afraid of what would happen if I stopped. The family already saw me as cold. Refusing would make me cruel. So I stayed quiet, writing invisible checks to preserve their illusion of Amanda's perfect life. But that Thanksgiving felt different. Maybe it was the way Derek avoided eye contact, or how Amanda's laughter came too sharp, too brittle. Something was cracking beneath the gloss. I didn't know it yet, but that night would be the last time they ever underestimated me. Dinner began the same way it always did, Dad, carving the turkey like a surgeon, while Amanda narrated her life like a reality show. "Derek just expanded his practice," she announced, passing him a glass of Pinot like she was awarding a trophy. "We're thinking of buying the house next door. The kids want a pool." The table erupted with admiration. I smiled the kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes, and sipped my water. My pie sat untouched on the counter, shrinking under the glow of her $200 charcuterie board. Then my cousin Maya spoke up. "I've been drowning in student loans," she said softly. "I can barely make minimum payments." I looked up, ready to help. "I can show you a few options to consolidate." Mom cut me off, voice sharp but polite. "Not now, Olivia. Not everyone wants to talk about numbers." Amanda jumped in, eager for attention. "Maya, you should talk to me. I'm great with money, great with money." I nearly laughed. This was the woman whose minimum payments I'd been covering for years. Still, I said nothing. Maya nodded, trying to be polite. Amanda launched into vague advice about budgeting and manifesting abundance. I stared at my plate until the edges blurred. After dinner, I found Maya alone in the kitchen loading dishes. "Hey," I said quietly. "If you want, I can send you some real resources. No pressure." She smiled with relief, but before she could answer, Amanda's voice sliced through the air. "Oh my God, Olivia, can you not?" She was standing in the doorway, wine in hand, expression sharp enough to cut glass. "I was just offering—" "She doesn't need your lectures," Amanda snapped. "She needs actual help." I froze. "I work in finance, Amanda." She laughed. "And yet you can't even manage your own money. Everyone knows you're always broke. That's why you live in that tiny apartment." The words landed like slaps. Behind her, Dad appeared, drawn by the noise. "What's going on? Amanda's right," Mom said quickly. "If you're struggling, Liv, you can tell us." I stared at them. "Struggling?" Amanda's eyes glittered. "She's always asking me for money, Dad. It's embarrassing." That did it. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. For a second, I thought maybe I'd misheard, but the pity in Mom's face told me I hadn't. I had spent 4 years quietly funding her perfect life, her designer handbags, her spa days, her vacations, and now, in front of the whole family, she was rewriting the story, painting me as the beggar. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. "I've never asked you for a single dollar," I said. Amanda tilted her head, smiling like I was being dramatic. "Liv, just stop. It's fine. We get it." But it wasn't fine. It was the moment everything I'd swallowed for years began to burn its way back up. The kitchen went still. Even the clinking of dishes stopped. Amanda stood there, cheeks flushed, eyes bright with victory. She thought she'd humiliated me, but something inside me shifted quietly, almost peacefully, like a final switch flipping off. I pulled my phone from my pocket. "You're right," I said softly. "I should stop asking you for money." She smirked. Finally, some self-awareness. My thumb opened my banking app. 6 scheduled payments appeared in blue lines across the screen: her credit cards, her car loan, her insurance, her household bills. 4 years of handouts disguised as sisterly love. "Family helps family, right?" she said, sipping her wine. "Right," I answered, "but maybe not like this." The room watched me, unsure what I was doing. Then, one by one, I began canceling every payment. A tiny buzz confirmed each deletion. Canceled, canceled, canceled. "Olivia," my mother said sharply, "what are you doing? Taking responsibility for my choices," I said, repeating Amanda's favorite phrase. Amanda's phone buzzed once, then again, then 3 times in a row. She ignored it at first, but the alerts came faster, one after another, until the room filled with the sharp digital hum of her life falling apart. "What's that?" Dad asked. Amanda's smile wavered. "It's nothing." Her screen lit up again. Payment failed. Autopay declined. Insufficient funds. The silence that followed was surgical. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and smoothed my sweater. "I should go," I said evenly. "You're right, Amanda. I need to stop making my problems everyone else's." I left before anyone could answer. Behind me, I heard her phone ringing non-stop. Chase. Capital One. The ghosts of every secret bill I'd been paying. At home, I poured myself tea and opened my laptop. Years of bank records sat waiting, every transfer, every please, just this once, every promise she'd never kept. I built a spreadsheet, color-coded by year. The total stared back at me, $41,300. When her first frantic voicemail arrived, I didn't answer. Then came more. Her voice swung from angry to desperate to tearful. "Olivia, please, I don't know what you did, but Derek's asking questions. Fix this, please." The next morning, the calls came from my parents. "She's your sister," Mom pleaded. "You can't just cut her off." "I didn't cut her off," I said. "I just stopped paying her bills." Silence. They couldn't argue with that. By the end of the week, Amanda's entire illusion had collapsed, her cards frozen, her credit tanking, Derek finally seeing the truth she'd buried under Burberry and filters. The family's golden child was unraveling, and for the first time I didn't feel guilt. I felt air, light, space. Because sometimes justice doesn't need an audience. It just needs a password, a steady hand, and the courage to hit cancel. By Monday morning, I'd stopped counting how many times she called. 19 voicemails, 42 texts, each one more frantic than the last. I didn't listen to them at first. I wanted silence. Clean, heavy silence. But when I finally did, they played like a confession tape. "Olivia, what the hell did you do? My payments aren't going through, Liv. Please, the bank called. Derek's freaking out. Please, I'm serious. This isn't funny. Then one from my mother, Amanda, is very upset. You need to fix whatever this is. Fix." That word had followed me my entire life. I'd fixed Amanda's debts, her drama, her image. I'd fixed the family narrative every time she stumbled. But not this time. At 8:47 a.m., an unknown number flashed on my screen. I answered. Miss Richardson, this is Janet from Chase Bank. We're confirming the cancellation of recurring payments on an account ending in 7734. That's correct, I said. May I ask why you were making payments on someone else's card? I took a slow breath. Family arrangement. It's over. Pause. Then understood. Cancellation complete. When I hung up, I knew there was no going back. By noon, Amanda texted again. You said you'd help me. Why are you doing this to me? I typed back. You told me to stop asking you for money. I'm just following instructions. The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Then her final message. I have $87,000 in debt. I can't fix this alone. There it was, the truth in writing, the number she'd hidden from Derek, the secret I'd been protecting. I didn't reply. I just screenshotted it, archived it, and closed my phone. That afternoon, my father called. His voice was measured the way it gets when he's trying to sound reasonable. Olivia, your sister's in serious trouble. The credit card companies are threatening to send her to collections. I know. Then you need to do something. I did, I said. I stopped paying her bills. He sighed heavily. That's heartless. She's your sister. I was her sister when I sent $40,000 she never returned. I'm still her sister now. I'm just not her lifeline. You've changed. No, Dad. I've stopped pretending this is love. By Tuesday, the family chat was buzzing. Aunt Susan called to check in. Then Brian texted, followed by a voicemail from Maya. I ignored them all until Maya's second message came through. Olivia, I just found out. She told everyone you were begging her for money while you were paying her bills. That's insane. I could hear the disbelief in her voice. You have to tell people the truth. I don't need to, I said quietly. The truth's already catching up. And it did, faster than I expected. Thursday evening, my phone rang again. Derek. For a second, I almost didn't answer. Then I did. Hey, he said, voice tight. I wanted to hear it from you. You've been paying her credit cards, yes. For how long? 4 years. Silence. Then a sound halfway between a sigh and a laugh. Jesus Christ, I didn't want to get between you two. You weren't between us. You were under us, holding her up. I didn't know what to say. He kept going. She told me you were jealous, that you couldn't manage your own money. I believed her. I swallowed. Now you know. Yeah, now I know. Derek wasn't angry. He sounded tired. The kind of tired that comes after years of denial. He thanked me, then apologized. Not for Amanda, for believing the wrong person. Friday morning, Amanda showed up at my apartment. No makeup eyes, swollen, wearing sweatpants that probably cost more than my entire outfit. She looked small for the first time in her life. Can I come in? I should have said no. But I stepped aside. She sat at my kitchen table, tracing a finger along the edge of her coffee mug. I messed up. Yes, I said. I was drunk at Thanksgiving. I just wanted them to think I was doing well. I didn't mean what I said. You called me a beggar. Her lip trembled. I was scared. Derek was getting suspicious. I thought if I made you look worse than you, I finished for her. She nodded. I don't know what to do, Liv. The credit cards are frozen. The car might get repossessed. Derek's furious. I stayed quiet. Please, she whispered, just for a few months. I'll get a job. I'll pay you back. You've been saying that for 4 years. Her tears came fast, ugly, real. You don't understand. I'll lose everything. No, I said softly. You already did. She blinked at me like she hadn't processed it yet. I stood and opened the door. I can't, I said. Not again. She hesitated. I really am sorry. I believe you're sorry it's over, I said. But I don't think you're sorry for what you did. She left without another word. That night, I sat on my couch, my small, quiet couch in my small, quiet apartment, and exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. My phone vibrated once. A new text from Derek. She's telling the truth about being sorry. I'm handling it. She's working now. Thank you for everything. I didn't reply. Not yet. Some things don't need words, because revenge isn't always fire and spectacle. Sometimes it's the slow, steady silence of a door that finally stays closed. And in that silence, for the first time, I heard my own life start again. By the time spring came, the story of that Thanksgiving had been picked clean by every branch of our family tree. The older generation whispered that I had gone cold, while the cousins quietly called to say I'd done the right thing. I didn't correct anyone. I was tired of correcting people. Derek sold Amanda's SUV and bought her a used sedan. He canceled the Turks and Caicos trip, took over all their accounts, and set up automatic transfers to pay down her debt. Amanda started working at a local boutique 40 hours a week on her feet. The girl who used to post from luxury resorts now posted pictures of folded sweaters and discount handbags. Mom tried to stage family dinners to reconcile us. I went, but I didn't play the old role anymore. I brought my own dessert, smiled politely, left early. Amanda avoided my eyes, and I didn't chase her down to make it better. One morning, about 6 months after that night, my phone buzzed with a payment notification, $500 deposited to my account. A message followed first payment. It'll take me 16 years, but I'm going to pay you back every dollar. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to send it back. Another part knew she needed to do this for herself. I typed 2 words, received. Thank you. Life moved quietly after that. I redirected that $600 a month into investments. By the next Thanksgiving, my portfolio was up 34%. I still lived simply, but now every piece of furniture, every quiet morning coffee felt like mine. Paid for, earned untied from anyone else's chaos. At Christmas, Amanda and I stood side by side in Mom's kitchen again, strangers who shared the same childhood. She handed me a plate of cookies without meeting my eyes. I'm working on it, she said. I know I told her. It wasn't forgiveness. It was acknowledgement. Maya hugged me before she left that night. You taught me not to let people walk all over me, she whispered. You did that by finally not letting them walk over you. That's when I realized the truth. The moment I stopped being the family scapegoat wasn't when Amanda's phone lit up with declined payments. It was when I stopped apologizing for doing what was right. A year later, Thanksgiving looked smaller, fewer guests, less noise. But for once, the quiet felt right. I sat at the same table where everything had fallen apart 12 months before and realized I wasn't waiting for anyone's approval anymore. I'd spent most of my life trying to be the sister who fixed things until I learned that fixing others can break you in ways no one sees. Amanda was polite, calm, almost shy. She passed me the mashed potatoes, and for the first time, there was no hidden performance behind her smile. I didn't feel anger anymore, just distance, the kind that finally feels peaceful. I left early, walked out into the cold night, and thought about all the things I'd bought back with my silence, my dignity, my savings, my self-respect. I used to think revenge meant making them hurt. But real revenge is just living well, unbothered, free. If you've ever been the one who held a family together until it broke you, this story is for you. Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from your stories. Remind me I'm not alone. And if you believe that setting boundaries isn't cruelty, but courage, hit subscribe. There are more stories like this about people who finally stopped apologizing for saving themselves. I still remember the second my daughter stopped smiling. She didn't scream or cry. She looked at me and whispered, "Mom, did we do something wrong?" That question hurt more than any insult, because an adult decided my children weren't important enough to belong. A few hours later, my husband stood up in front of my family. He didn't argue. He didn't explain. He pulled out his phone. What he said next didn't just end a birthday party. It quietly destroyed a deal, a reputation, and a lie my family protected for years. But none of them understood what they had just triggered that day. My name is Allison. I'm in my early 30s, married with 2 kids, who still believe the world is mostly fair if you explain it carefully enough. I work in management, long hours, steady pressure. The kind of job where you're always solving problems for other people. At home, though, I try to keep things simple. Dinner at the table. Homework spread across the counter. A house that feels safe, even when life outside isn't. That Tuesday evening, I was in the kitchen stirring a pot of pasta sauce, the smell of garlic filling the room. My daughter was coloring at the table. My son was lining up toy cars by color, completely focused. David wasn't home yet. He usually worked late, but he always made it home in time to tuck the kids in. That's when my phone rang. Sarah. My older sister had a way of calling like she already assumed the answer would be yes. Bright voice. fast pace, like she was doing you a favor by including you at all. Emily's turning 8 next month, she said. We're doing a big party, that new venue downtown. You know, the one everyone's talking about. I smiled automatically. That sounds great. The kids will love it. There was a pause. Not long, just long enough. Well, actually, she said we're keeping it smaller, just close family and Emily's school friends. I turned the stove down. Okay. What does that mean? It means you and David are invited, obviously. But we're not really doing the cousin thing this year. The words landed wrong, heavy, slippery. My kids, I asked. She sighed like I was making this complicated. Emily wants it to feel more grown up, fewer little kids running around. It's her birthday. My daughter looked up from the table, smiling at me, holding up her drawing. I swallowed. They're her cousins, I said quietly. They adore her. And I adore you, Sarah replied, her tone practiced. But this is what we decided. I told her calmly that if my kids weren't invited, David and I wouldn't be coming either. She laughed it off, warned me Mom wouldn't be happy, and hung up before I could say anything else. That night, after the kids were asleep, I told David everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded once. Then we're not going, he said. At the time, I thought that was the end of it. I didn't know it was just the beginning. The fallout didn't come all at once. It seeped in through small things. A group message lighting up my phone while I was at work. Photos of balloon colors. A discussion about catering options. Everyone talking like nothing had happened. I didn't respond. 2 days later, my mother called. She always did when silence made her uncomfortable. Sarah said, "You're not coming to Emily's party," she said, her voice already halfway to disappointment. "What's going on?" I explained it slowly, carefully. The way you do when you're hoping someone will hear the part that matters. There was a pause, then the familiar answer. It's Sarah's choice. It's her daughter's birthday. You can't expect her to invite everyone. I'm not expecting anything, I said. I'm choosing not to attend something where my children are deliberately excluded. You're making this bigger than it needs to be, she replied. Just come. The kids won't even notice. They will, I said. They'll notice when every other grandchild is there except them. She sighed. You're being stubborn. I'm being their mother. We ended the call without resolving anything. After that, the pressure started coming from everywhere. My brother texted asking if there was drama. I gave him the short version. He said he understood, but he was still bringing his kids because he didn't want to rock the boat. A few aunts chimed in with comments about family unity and not letting small things ruin relationships. Small things. I kept replaying Sarah's voice in my head, calm, certain, like she hadn't said anything cruel at all. David noticed the shift before I said anything else. He started coming home earlier, watching more, asking fewer questions. That's how he was when something felt off. Quiet but alert. The week before the party, my mother called again. This time she tried a softer approach. Emily would be so sad if you weren't there, she said. People will ask questions. They can, I replied. I'm not explaining why my kids weren't invited. Well, maybe you should, she said. So people don't get the wrong idea. I almost laughed. The wrong idea about what? That I was difficult, that I couldn't take a hint, that I didn't know my place. The day before the party, Sarah sent one last message in the family chat, a cheerful reminder about the time, the dress code, the parking situation. A smiling emoji at the end like that smoothed everything over. I put my phone down and looked at my kids playing on the floor. My daughter was teaching her brother a game she'd invented. He kept messing it up and she kept patiently correcting him, never raising her voice. They had no idea what was happening around them. And that was the part that made my chest tighten. That night, David asked, "Are you okay?" "I am," I said after a moment. "But tomorrow might not be." He nodded. "Then we'll handle tomorrow when it comes." I believed him, but I still didn't know how hard tomorrow would hit or how quickly everything would change once my children learned the truth. The morning of the party arrived bright and clear, the kind of day that feels unfair when you're carrying something heavy. David suggested we take the kids somewhere fun, somewhere loud and distracting. We chose the aquarium in the city, their favorite place where everything glows blue and nothing feels urgent. At first it worked. My son pressed his face to the glass, watching a stingray drift by like a living shadow. My daughter laughed when the penguins dove her ponytail, bouncing with every step. I told myself we had made the right call, that we had protected them. Then, my daughter tugged on my sleeve. "Mom," she said softly, "is Emily's birthday today?" The question landed like a dropped plate. Sharp, sudden. David's hand tightened around our son's shoulder. "How do you know that, sweetheart?" I asked. "Grandma told me," she said. "She asked what dress I was wearing to the party." Of course she did. I knelt down so we were eye level. The hum of the tanks filled the space between us. "We're not going to that party," I said carefully. Her smile faded. Why not I searched for words that wouldn't break her, words that wouldn't teach her the wrong lesson. Sometimes I said parties are just for certain people. She blinked. "But I'm her cousin." "I know," I said, my throat tightening. Her eyes filled fast and silent. "Does Aunt Sarah not like us?" My son started crying before I could answer. Big hiccuping sobs that echoed off the glass. David picked him up immediately, pressing his forehead to his hair. "We're going home," he said quietly. The drive back was silent except for sniffles in the back seat. I kept my eyes on the road because if I looked at the mirror, I knew I'd lose it. When we got home, I put on a movie and handed out snacks like bandages. The kids curled up together, already drifting back toward normal. Kids are resilient like that. I wasn't. David disappeared into his office. I could hear the low murmur of his voice through the door. Not angry, controlled. That scared me more. An hour later, my phone buzzed, then buzzed again. Messages stacking up. Missed calls. My mother, my brother, Sarah. I walked into the office. David looked up at me, his expression calm but resolved. The kind of calm that comes after a decision has already been made. "They made our children cry," he said. "That's not something I'm willing to overlook." That was the moment I understood something clearly for the first time. Staying quiet hadn't protected anyone. It had only delayed the consequences, and whatever was about to happen next, it wasn't going to be gentle. I didn't ask David what he meant at first. I could tell by the way he was sitting shoulder-squared, phone face down on the desk, that whatever decision he had made was already in motion. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't venting. He was calm in a way that only happens after someone crosses a line you never meant to forgive. "What did you do?" I asked quietly. He turned the screen toward me. I didn't recognize the details at first. Just a chain of emails, short, professional, carefully worded, subject lines about meetings, timelines, approvals, the kind of messages most people skim without thinking twice. "Sarah's husband has been trying to lock down a major contract," David said. "It's been dragging on for months." I knew that much. Sarah had mentioned it more than once, always framing it as the thing that would finally put their family on stable ground. Bigger house, better schools, less stress. It was the reason she'd been tense lately, the reason everything felt like it mattered just a little too much. "What does that have to do with us?" I asked. David looked at me steadily. "I'm the one who decides whether that contract moves forward." The room felt suddenly smaller. "I didn't know that," I said. "You weren't supposed to," he replied. "Most people don't connect the dots. Different structures, different names. I like it that way." I stared at the screen again this time, understanding what I was looking at. A decision. Already sent. Already final. "You ended it," I said. "Yes." My first instinct wasn't relief. It was fear. "David," I said slowly, "you didn't just do this because of a party, right?" He shook his head. "No, I did it because someone decided our children were disposable, and then everyone else told us to swallow it." My phone buzzed again. Then again. I didn't even have to look to know who it was. Sarah. My mother, my brother. I finally picked up one call. Sarah's voice came through sharp and panicked, stripped of the practiced calm she usually wore. "What is going on?" she demanded. "Mark just got a call saying the deal is dead. Dead. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't apologize. "I know exactly what happened," I said. "David made a business decision." "This is insane," she snapped. "Over a birthday party? No," I replied. "Over how you treated my kids," she scoffed. You're seriously going to destroy our finances because Emily didn't want little kids running around. They're not little kids, I said. They're your niece and nephew. That's not the point, she shot back. You know how competitive things are. That contract was everything for us. And my children weren't, I said. Silence crackled on the line. Then my mother cut in, her voice trembling with anger. You've gone too far. This is punishment, Allison. This is revenge. No, I said. This is consequence. You could have talked to us, she insisted. You could have worked this out. We tried, I said. You told me the kids wouldn't notice. They noticed. David reached for my hand, grounding me. Sarah's voice softened just slightly. You planned this, she said. You knew he could do this. I didn't, I replied honestly. But even if I had, it wouldn't change what you did. You're being cruel, she said. You're ruining our future. I took a breath. You hurt my children. Tell me which one of us decided that was acceptable. She hung up. The rest of the afternoon blurred into noise, messages flying in from relatives who suddenly cared very deeply about family unity, calls I didn't answer, opinions I didn't ask for. Everyone had a take once money entered the picture. David ignored it all. He closed his laptop, stood up, and walked into the living room where our kids were sprawled on the floor with blankets and popcorn. He sat down with them like nothing else existed. That night, Sarah showed up at our door, alone. She looked smaller than I remembered, tired. Her eyes flicked around the house as if she was seeing it for the first time. The kids' drawings taped to the fridge, the scuffed coffee table, the life we'd built without needing approval. Can we talk? She asked. We sat in the living room, the same room where my kids had cried hours earlier. She twisted her hands together, avoiding my eyes. I didn't realize it would go this far, she said. Then you didn't think very hard, I replied. She flinched but didn't argue. I told myself it was just one party, she admitted, that they wouldn't even know. They knew, I said. They asked why you didn't like them. Her face crumpled. That's not true. I do like them. Then why did you exclude them? She was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was raw. Because I was jealous. I didn't interrupt. Your kids are sweet, she continued. Everyone says it. Mine's been struggling lately. Tantrums, acting out. I felt like everything was a comparison and I was losing. I wanted one day where I didn't have to feel that. So you made my kids pay for it, I said. She nodded, tears spilling over. I didn't think it through. I didn't think about how they'd feel. I was wrong. It wasn't an excuse, but it was the truth. You need to apologize to them, I said, not to me. To them. I will, she whispered, if you'll let me. That's up to them, I replied. And as for the contract, that's David's decision. She nodded, already knowing the answer. David didn't change his mind. When I asked him later if he ever would, he shook his head. It's not about punishment, he said. It's about who I choose to do business with. I won't partner with people who think hurting children is negotiable. The fallout was immediate. Sarah's husband scrambled for alternatives, smaller deals, less security. They survived, just not the way they'd planned. Sarah came back a week later with Emily. She knelt in front of my kids, eyes level, and apologized. No excuses, no qualifiers. Emily handed them handmade cards inviting them to a cousin-only celebration. Cake, balloons, just family. My kids forgave her instantly, the way children do when you give them honesty. The adults weren't so quick. Family gatherings changed after that. Conversations quieter, smiles more careful. Everyone knew the rules now, even if they didn't like them. And as for me, I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear. For the first time, no one questioned whether my children mattered. That was enough. The days after everything happened were quieter than I expected. Not peaceful, just subdued, like everyone was carefully choosing their words, aware that something permanent had shifted. Sarah kept her promise. She brought Emily over one afternoon with a small cake and a handful of balloons. No big speeches, no audience. She knelt in front of my kids and apologized directly. She told them she was wrong, that they mattered, that she should never have made them feel otherwise. My daughter listened closely, then nodded once. My son hugged Emily before anyone said another word. Children don't hold grudges when adults stop lying. The relationship between Sarah and me didn't snap back into place. It settled into something more cautious, polite, honest, a distance that wasn't punishment, just protection. She understood that now. David never reconsidered his decision. He didn't gloat. He didn't explain himself again. When family members hinted that things had gone too far, he simply said, "I stand by it." And that was the end of the conversation. My parents adjusted slowly. My father admitted he understood David's position, even if he wished the fallout hadn't been so public. My mother stopped framing it as an overreaction and started calling it what it was, a boundary. At home, life returned to its rhythm. Homework, bedtime stories, weekend pancakes. The kids stopped asking about the party. They remembered the cake they shared later, not the one they missed. But I remembered, and I carried that memory with gratitude. Because my children learned something important without ever having to hear it explained. They learned that when someone treats them as less than the people who love them, we'll stand up. What stayed with me wasn't the canceled deal or the family tension. It was the look on my kids' faces when they realized they were worth protecting. No explanations, no compromises, just love with a backbone. If you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your children, you're not alone. Boundaries don't break families. Silence does. If this story resonated with you, share your experience in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss the next story about standing up when it matters most.